This is Mike Lindell. If you've ever seen, or if you've never seen Mike Lindell, he is a far-right nutcase obsessed with election security. He made an appearance on Dr. Drew's Rumble channel. Dr. Drew has a Rumble channel, okay? He's, honestly, in my opinion, he's not even a doctor. It's like calling Dr. Oz or Dr. Phil a doctor. I guess technically they probably went through med school or something, but they're favorites on Fox News and other far-right propaganda outlets. Well, he had Lindell on to talk about election fraud and his addiction and all that other junk. I want to listen to what they have to say here. It's bound to be psychotic. I'm walking into this conversation for the first time, too, so you're not alone. Let's give this a listen. While we listen, we're going to play some Pokemon Ultraviolet. It's a ROM hack of Fire Red that lets me catch every Pokemon. Right now, I'm trying to catch a Chansey that has a lucky egg. It's an item. It's very, very, very rare. So I'm going to keep it in the background there until I catch it. And let's give this a listen and see what they have to say.
The felons that were in prison, now these are felons, what percentage of their parents got together, planned on getting married, got married, had the child, and then were still married while the guy or gal was in prison?
Okay, so what percentage of prisoners have two-parent households? Is that what he's saying? All right. What percentage, Mike?
0%, everybody. Yeah.
0% of all prisoners nationwide have no two-parent households. 0% of all prisoners nationwide have two-parent households. They're all one-parent households. Really? Are you going to lean into that statistic? Do you have anything to back that up? Like literally anything. I'll take anything. I'll take somebody wrote it on the back of a napkin one day. You don't even have that.
0%. As you get down to the county level, it goes up and up from there. So the family and God are so important in getting through that.
Yeah.
Family and God are so important to getting through that.
Okay. So for sure. And finally, in the later 90s, 2000s, my profession started looking at something called the Adverse Childhood Experience Scale. And lo and behold, an adverse childhood experience is divorce, shocking, addict.
That doesn't surprise me. Going through a divorce for the child, it's an underappreciated problem. People don't pay any attention to what the kid's going on with. All they do is pay attention to themselves. Not that you should stay with somebody that's terrible. You absolutely should not. Should leave. It's preferable for you to leave if you're having a hard time. But the kid needs attention too. They need to understand what's happening, and they need to be given choices and helped through it and everything. It's not good. Also, single parent homes do lead to higher rates of drug addiction and, whatever other thing he said. But you know what else does? Spanking. Spanking your kid leads to more violence, higher rates of crime, and all kinds of other things. So we're going to cut out spanking too? You going to advocate for that one?
In the home, somebody's an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah. And one more thing. I'm sorry. I do advocate for two-parent households, at least two parents. I'm okay with more than just two. If you can't do it, you can't do it. I'm a single parent, or I'm a single parent household. Well, I have been up until my wife recently came into the picture. I raised my kid all alone, and it was not easy. It wasn't ideal either. I couldn't even go to the bank because the bank is only open during work hours. What was I supposed to do? To take a whole damn day off work to go to the bank. Having a single-parent household is difficult in the society in which we live. But this is a subtle, quiet dog whistle to black people are to blame for their problems. 99.8% of black communities, or whatever, have single-parent households. That's the talking point these people go with. It's nowhere near that high, but whatever. It's a way of turning responsibility on its head, so it's the person's fault rather than whose fault it actually is. The government's for not passing regulation to protect black Americans. That's it. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge your religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video.
Which I suspect you probably had that because the gene comes, the thing comes from somewhere. It's a biological process, you know. And yet we have still been living in a time when the families have been allowed to decay. Kids are, you know, no one's born within wedlock anymore. They're not, you know, single.
I don't know. Who cares? So what? Why do you care if people are born within wedlock? What does that have to do with anything at all?
Family homes are just ridiculously common. Marriages don't last. And then the spiritual side of thing, we'll go to that next. But why have we allowed families to deteriorate so much in this country?
Why have we allowed freedom, is what you're asking?
In fact, I don't know if you saw the president of Mexico. He was being interviewed, and he was glib in his answer, but it's getting at this point. He said they were talking about fentanyl. The journalist was, why aren't your people using fentanyl? And you saw the snap back. We have families. Our families are intact here.
Oh yeah, and Mexico, as portrayed by people like this, the far right, Mike Lindell and Dr. Drew, Mexico's the pinnacle of the developed world, right? In their mind? Absolutely. Fentanyl use is down in Mexico because cartels, mob families in Mexico have said they will kill anybody who decides to deal in fentanyl. You ship it over the border, if anything, or you do nothing, because fentanyl is killing our people. No more fentanyl. That's what they said. So anyway, that's why fentanyl use is down, because the cartels demanded it was down. Not that the government had any control over it. They didn't. The cartels had control over it. Fentanyl, by the way, is really easy to make. It takes just a few specific types of chemicals, and you can produce it. Chemicals are restricted, but it's not that hard to get those chemicals from China where they're not restricted.
Which I thought was a very interesting answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been the attack on our country. It's not just through our, we're in a spiritual battle of historical proportions. And, as everyone knows, I've been fighting for our election platforms, but you go deeper in that, you go back a couple decades when this started, it was to destroy the family unit. And, our college kids have been brainwashed. I mean, there's been just all kinds of stuff that happened back then. And
how have the college kids been brainwashed?
It's been a manifestation of now of just, I believe, this is evil. This is just taking, you started with that, destroy the, they had, already in the inner cities, I spent a lot of time in the inner cities in addiction, and there was so much fatherlessness there. And, I did a thing. I was in the projects once in Chicago. I was on a radio show, and I said something on there about fatherlessness, and everybody's an addict or addicted to drugs or on drugs. And this lady shamed me. She goes, "How dare you stereotype us?" And I said, you know what? Other than my one drug dealer's mom that was in the corner praying every day for us, I said everybody was affected, and I think everyone in Chicago called this lady, this host, and just said, he's right.
Okay, if you didn't see the other part of this, like this isn't part one, this is part two, I think, maybe. If you didn't see the other, don't sweat it. I'll give context if it's missing. But in the beginning of the first part, I talked about the fact that Mike Lindell lies constantly. You can never tell what the guy's lying about. It's like nonstop. This is Mike Lindell, June 19th, 2022, at Greg Locke's church, claiming that he Well, you know what? Just listen. Just listen to what he says here. Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
I had been up for 14 days with no sleep.
That's false. You die after 11.
And I come out of the bedroom, and all three of the big drug dealers are standing there. They're going that they knew of each other, but they had never met.
So he's saying big drug dealers that control swaths of the town come to his house, like had never met him before. I got a story about this in a second.
And I go, "What are you guys doing?" They go, "We're cutting you off." The one guy says, Ty says, "We're cutting you off. You've been up for 14 days." And I'm going, well, "I've only been up for 12, whatever." And the one guy says he's not getting anything from my people, and because they all had like sections of the town right there where we were. And so two of them left, and he sat and he's going to wait me out. He said, "How much crack you have left?" I showed him what I had left, and he sits there in the chair. "No, I'm out of crack, and I'm carpet farming. Anybody knows about crack, scraping the pipe, and for 14 days, I'm getting, even up the paranoias weren't even going on because it was up so long." Well, I looked over, and he was asleep. So I tiptoed out the door down to the streets of Minneapolis and tried to buy crack. And I couldn't buy crack anywhere. And in any city in this country, you can get crack in the middle of the night, trust me. And they're coming up to me, they're going, no. Well, they had gotten the word out by the one dealer had, and said, he had went down to the street, said, "If you see some crazy white guy with a mustache, you sell him crack, and we're coming after you." So the word had got out, and these guys are backing away like I'm, there's something wrong with me.
So what he's saying is that the three largest drug dealers in the area who controlled sections of the town were worried about Mike Lindell's well-being and went as far as to step in and stay the night at his house to make sure that he could get clean because they felt for the guy. They wanted to help him. I used to be a drug addict long and long ago, and I know people like this, actually. There's a guy from Detroit that I knew that used a fake name and a fake everything, and anytime he ever got in the car with me, we went through a drive-thru or something, the woman might recognize him, and she would call him some bizarre name. Like that didn't even I was like, what are you talking, like, where are you, this guy or that guy? I don't want to say aliases, but anyway, he comes from Detroit, and all of the heroin is coming over from Detroit because codeine is legal. It's over the counter in Canada. You could just get it, and you convert codeine to morphine. It's possible to do. It's not that hard. And once you have morphine, all you have to do is mix morphine with vinegar and put it on a tray, a baking tray, put it in the oven on a low temperature for 8 hours, and you're done. After that period of time, you've got heroin. It's black tar heroin, but it's still heroin. It's very powerful. If you want the normal stuff like the powder, you have to use acetic anhydride. Acetic anhydride. Very hard to get. That's regulated heavily. But it's basically vinegar that's had all of the water removed. It's just pure acid. Anyway, this guy that I knew that was as high up as you get from Detroit, he knew some other people who came to Huntington, West Virginia, stayed in the Huntington Inn. It was a motel-style situation where they could jump out the window or jump out off the balcony or whatever at any moment that was necessary. And you walk into their room that they had there, that they were renting for the month, and you'd find TVs and guns and guards and all kinds of shit lined up along the walls. Things that they traded for, like expensive things, for mass amounts and forms of protection, because they were bringing a brick of the stuff back, okay? 1/10 of a gram of heroin cost, at the time, $25. It's called a pack. 1 gram cost about $200. Depends on the quality, depends on the seller and all that, or 200, 250, somewhere in there. They came back with, 30 grams to an ounce, 16 ounces in a pound. Is that right? That's 480 grams. And that's let's say $200 a gram. That's $100,000 in heroin that they had on them. Of course, they had guns lined up along the walls. And trust me, they were prepared to shoot you. They were prepared to put a bullet in your head if you made any twitchy moves. You do not fuck with these people. They controlled parts of the city of Huntington, just like he's describing here. These were scary fucking people. The point is that they don't care about your well-being. They don't care about your life. They want their money. That's it. And if you're there wasting their time, they may just put a bullet in you anyways. Really. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not joking. This is 100% real. But he's telling me that, oh, yeah, and by the way, they may actually put a bullet in their people, in the other drug dealers in the area, turf wars and all that, They don't like each other. They want to be able to control this area. If they do, they'll make a lot more money. They don't meet up. They don't talk. They don't have conversation. They don't drink tea together. So what Mike Lindell is saying here is just a fictitious, made-up scenario. He's lying. This is a lie.
And these guys are backing away like I'm, there's something wrong with me. I searched for an hour.
Anyway, the point is that Lindell is full of it, completely full of it. And if that doesn't do it for you, he's claimed that he never took a loan from anybody to create My Pillow. That's just a flat out lie. He said in another clip that he did take a loan from bankers.
My Pillow was just, like I say, a blip on the radar. My sister says, pray for favor. And I had these guys that stole my company, and I had to come up with $30,000 cash. Make that long story short, I went and met with eight C's. I come in there, and they're all dressed in suits. Remember, anybody that wore a tie and a suit and ate with more than 2 forks, I was afraid of, right? But I walk in this room to borrow this $30,000. I walk in, they're all wearing suits, and I start telling my story. These guys took my company. I need $30,000. I'll pay you back $40,000. I said I used to be a crack addict, but I'm going to do these home shows. I'm going to get back my company, and I'm going to help people in addiction. Their CFO goes, when did you quit crack? And I said, last Thursday. And they go. And 4 of them got up, looked for the cameras, and left the room. The other 4 stayed there, and they ended up doing it just because, but they ended up doing it, and I did end up paying them back a couple months later.
So he just lies. He just straight up falsifies information, just fabricates data here. He's lying, right? I don't know how else to interpret this. Does he not realize how much of a hole he's dug for himself? Oh, I think he realizes now. Talking about Mike Lindell, I believe. Yeah, I think he knows. I think he's in bad shape, and he is fully aware of that fact. Lindell's story is a load of BS. Thank you, Nerico. Funds for the feline overlords, Hillbass. Absolutely, 100%. It is. It's complete nonsense. All of it. Everything out of the guy's mouth is a lie. So when you hear Dr. Drew tell you, Mike Lindell got clean and he worked so hard for this and that, blah, 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 blah. No. He lied. The whole thing is a lie.
Have me back on and apologize that's reality. We didn't make it up. I think they tried to destroy the black.
We didn't make it up, he says.
Black community long before everything else, but that was the part of this. Let's destroy the family unit. And you talk about Mexico, with the Hispanics, they're still very tight in that unit. Probably the most tight of the people. The families, yeah, they're the most tight right now, and I think anyway. And so that what he was saying is true.
Yeah, no,
I don't know what all that was, but okay.
It has been a concern, and yet it's under constant assault, as recovery has been under assault. So recovery is under assault, family is under assault. Certainly spirituality and any kind of religious program, as we saw the
Oh, that's under assault too, is what he's saying? Family and or religious programs are under assault? How? In what way? And by who? Give me more information than that, Drew.
Religion decay or back down in the 20th century, you start to see the rise of charismatic leaders and centralized authorities and mass formation
Charismatic, by the way, is a movement within Christianity. Far-right nutcases who believe they can speak in tongues and stuff.
psychosis, such as in Germany, these become commonplace. And I would argue we're getting into another wave of that kind of thing. At least a lot of people are still completely swept into these mass formations where they're not even thinking. They're just in a mob. And I think it is lack of anchoring,
Which people?
of, whether it's some sort of meaning in life that religion used to give people or meaning that families give people. If you don't have that, you're sort of prone to almost, swept into cults.
Mhm.
Swept into cults. Okay, now this is my forte. This is my area of expertise. Go on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell people right now, though, I do it in my speeches even. I just came from Wisconsin today in a speech I gave with our real president. Can I say that on your show? With our real president. And
I don't know. It might get you in trouble. I don't think it'll get me in trouble. Caleb will just put up a disclaimer.
You better get that side ready. No, what I said to everybody, I said, you go back to December of 2019, where you had the highest consumer
Well, look at this. He put up a disclaimer. Some platforms have banned controversial topics. If the show ends here, keep watching at drdrew.tv. That's going to be a hard pass for me. Thank you, good sir. It's got a, what do you call it? Like a little QR code thing going on here. Yeah, this is just persecution complex bullshit. As if Rumble gives a shit what people say on their platform.
There it is. I bet you have the highest consumer confidence in history. Everybody's lives had physically improved because of political decisions being made. But everybody wasn't giving thanks to God. They weren't getting on their knees going, thank you, God. Thank you for all this. But their physical lives had improved. Now, as we see our country in total destruction and fentanyl pouring in, like you say, and people are feeling hopeless and they're turning to drug. People that haven't been addicted before being addicted, and people that are addicted get further addicted, so to speak, because addiction can be a massive escape from reality. It can, but when I say what's going on right now is we're in the greatest revival for Jesus Christ in history, because people look to God when things are going bad. So you're seeing more and more people pour into this bucket over and over and over again. Just like on my network, getting off your addictions is just a bonus. It's getting to your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And so all the things that are going bad out there in our country right now, if you look at it from that perspective, it's more and more people are being saved. And I think that's, that's what I look at. People say, well, how do you have a strength to keep going and going? Well, it's my faith in God, and I'm looking at it as a positive. Of course, I'm always optimistic about everything, but we've got to look at it like that. And people say, well, if Donald Trump gets back in, everything will be fixed. Well, we don't know that. This is all in God's timing, and God.
Exactly, we don't know that. I love how they're saying Trump is the solution to all of their problems without actually having any reason to believe that at all. Dude had 4 years. He had 4 years to fix this, and he didn't do jack shit for them.
God's plan. And if things have to get bad and worse and worse, so people, can, their eyes can be opened both politically and spiritually. And I think what's happening now has a lot of the silver lining will be what we see down the road. And we look back and say, wow, look at all this all the people that got saved. And it turned our country from, like I say, the 2020 election was probably the most important election in history because it's opening people's eyes as things keep happening in our country that don't make sense. Why would you have an open border and fentanyl pouring across the border and killing people? Why would you have all this stuff if it doesn't?
This is all made up. All this stuff doesn't exist. People flooding across the border and killing people and everything else and all the fentanyl, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the fentanyl, to my knowledge, is coming out of South America, not Central America, because Mexico told the cartels, and the cartels told the people not to deal in fentanyl because it's killing their own people. Unfortunately, the fentanyl addiction isn't like, it didn't shift from heroin to fentanyl. It isn't that the heroin addiction got better after fentanyl got worse. It's just that fentanyl got worse. Heroin is exactly where it's ever been, the use. It worse even. And fentanyl is compounded on top of that problem. They're basically the same chemical. Well, not chemical. They're the same high, the same type of substance that produces the same effects. And they're bad, both of them. They're terrible. So yeah, it would make sense that people want to root that out of their country.
I don't care. I don't even care if you're liberal or conservative. If it doesn't help the people, there's a different agenda, and it's a very evil agenda. And it's and like I say, we're in. And I've said it before. You know what? If we don't get through it, and then it's end times. And we all go to heaven as believers. It's a win-win. So I've always said,
if we don't get through it.
We're the times we're in now are probably the most historical times, the best times to be alive, because everything now is going to be changed, and it's going to be according to God's will. And so I'm looking forward to wherever we end up here, and look back and say, wow, it was on His time. And if you look up patience, if you Google patience, you don't see a picture of me. Trust me. And but I've had to learn to be patient. I've had to go, okay, I want it to happen right now, and but that's not reality.
Right, I'm afraid not. But we've had many great awakenings in this country. They've been very interesting. One of the things that doesn't make sense is that we allow people to die on our streets of addiction, and we give them drugs and give them needles, and we make it.
Did he just say we give them needles and drugs? What the hell is he talking about? Who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket that I didn't know about? What does he mean by that? Needle exchanges, by the way, he should know this as a medical professional. When I was an addict in my area of Huntington, West Virginia, there was an outbreak of hepatitis C. It was spreading like wildfire, which is preferable to HIV. HIV is terrible. It's a terrible, terrible disease. But it's the kind of disease that an addict is likely to get. So I guess people lucked out that the epidemic was hepatitis C rather than HIV. Anyway, there's one way to solve that. One way to alleviate that problem. It isn't cracking down on drugs harder. The drug war is a failure. The drugs won. You know what is helpful, though? Creating needle exchanges where people can go and trade used needles for clean needles. Make them available to people so that they don't. So first of all, if they don't have any needles, they threw their last ones away. They just go search on playgrounds or street corners or roads and find dirty needles to turn in, cleaning up the area. Or they can turn in their dirty needles that they've kept, and either way, they're going to decrease the likeliness of disease, period. It's a good thing. Needle exchanges are good. He seems to be saying they're bad here, that we're giving them free needles. Yeah, hand them out on the street corners. Why are we not doing this for everybody?
Been very interesting.
I mean, and this is scientifically proven. This isn't just me talking out my ass. I'm not just saying this because I feel that way. This has been proven through scientific methods. It's the most effective way of dealing with illness and keeping the most people alive. Oh, and one more thing. I was an addict. I used to be an addict. And now I'm a contributing, tax-paying member of society. You never know what somebody's going to go on to do after getting clean. You never know. Look at Mike Lindell. Alleges to be an addict and also alleges to be the My Pillow guy. I can't trust him at his word with anything at this point, but that's a big leap.
But that's not reality.
Right, I'm afraid not. But we've had many great awakenings in this country. They've been very interesting. One of the things that doesn't make sense is that we allow people to die on our streets of addiction, and we give them drugs and give them needles, and we make it all legal to steal to support your habit. And
no one is making it legal to steal, let alone to steal to support a habit. No one is making it legal to pass drugs out to people. Needle exchange programs are about the only true thing that he said there, and it's a complete misrepresentation of the facts and the science. And as a medical professional, he knows that. He must. He can't be this stupid.
Traffic in the drugs and whatnot. I'm wondering if you ran afoul of the legal system a few times with your, and I'm guessing it was crack that you got into. You were saying inner city Chicago. Did the legal system get in, and did having the consequences of the legalities affect get you towards recovery?
No, I never, ever, ever got caught with drugs or any drugs. In fact, I'll tell you this quick story. It's in my book of my intervention. I had a warrant out for my arrest. Mine was always, DWIs and such. And I had a warrant out for my arrest. I was downtown Minneapolis hiding out until I would get to court and be found innocent of it. And I had been up for about 14 days. And
no, he wasn't. You die after 11 days. That is a world record, and the person died.
I came out of the room, and all 3 drug dealers were standing there that control these areas. And I go, "What do you guys know each other?" And they go, "Yeah, we know who each other is," but they had never met. They said,
this guy has to know he's lying with this joke, right? He has to know. How long is this? Is 20 minutes? Lindell lies about drug dealers looking out for his best interests. Okay, go on.
I said, "Well, what are you doing?" He goes, "What, Mike, we're cutting you off. You've been up for 14 days. I said, "What is this, an intervention?" They go, "You call it whatever you want, Mike." And one of them left in disgust, and the other one went down the streets, got the word out. Now, I sat there with the other, "How much crack you have left?" I showed him, and he sat in the chair and tried to wait me out till I ran out of crack. Well, I finally...
Because he looked out for his best interests, because drug dealers are famous for caring about their clientele's well-being and preventing them from using drugs. That makes sense. Absolutely.
I did run out, and I'm carpet farming and scraping the pipe and everything. I look over, and he's sound asleep. So
if you notice, the story that he's telling right now is nearly identical, word for word, to the story that he told in the other one. Stories aren't usually word for word the same like that. He literally just said scraping the pipe and carpet farming the exact same way he did it at Greg Locke's church. That's weird, isn't it?
I head down the streets of Minneapolis. I come back upstairs at 2:30 in the morning. And after an hour of trying to buy crack, nobody would sell me crack. They had got the word out. Don't sell them anything. Well, I got back upstairs, and he says, "How'd that work out for you?" And he said, "Man, you've been telling us for years that this, your addiction thing, that you're going to quit someday and you're going to come back and help us all out of this addiction world we're in." And he said, "Give me your phone. I want to take a picture for that book you said you're going to write someday." And that picture on here, where it turns from the good Mike.
Dude, I like that. That's actually really, really cool. That's a good idea. So it's like what would you call it? Like a holographic image. One is him smiling, and the other is him like from when he was on drugs. That's a great idea.
To the bad mind. Wow. So that's the picture he took. That's the book, or the picture he took that day. Now, to finish what I was saying there, I actually went to bed then, and I slept for probably 20 hours. Well, I had to get back out to Carver, Minnesota to get something to my brother, or my pillow wouldn't be here. Okay. So I head out to
there's a U.S. mail, but okay.
Carver, Minnesota, and we were working out of a little schoolhouse, and I'm looking around, and I'm kind of paranoid going out there, because if I get caught, they're going to haul me right to jail before I can get this to my brother, these papers. And but I pull into the schoolhouse. There's only one way in and one way out, and here I pass Larry, the cop. And I go, "Oh, no." And I fly up the hill. He gets out of his car, and he's trying to grab for his gun. "Stop, Mike, stop." And I go, and I did stop. And I said, "Larry," here's exactly what I said to him. I said, "Larry," I said, I know you're going to arrest me anyway, but here's the deal. I got to get these papers to my brother. It's something to do with God that's going to affect millions of people. And I said, I don't know what it is, but I said, I know you're going to arrest me anyway, but I said, if you can let him get these papers. And I said, and I'll tell you what, if you do that, you're going to arrest me anyway. I promise I'll be innocent next Tuesday. And if I'm not, you can arrest me anytime, and I promise I'll have cocaine on me. Now, I said this to Larry the cop. I had never been...
Okay, I don't understand what the hell that story meant, but okay. This guy really needs help. This is just ridiculous. This whole thing is just nonsense.
Busted for drugs or anything ever, and I did have a bar for 13 years and not a good place for an addict. But anyway, to finish that story, 9 years went by. Remember, I quit on January 16, 2009. It was like maybe 6 years ago. And I was doing a little parade in Carver, Minnesota, wanting to throw little pillows out like these to the kids there in this parade. And I went to do that. Now, I hadn't seen Larry in 9 years, and from that day. And here where the floats are lining up, and all of a sudden I hear, and that was a familiar sound. I look, and here's Larry the cop pulls up, and he gets out of his car. I go, Larry. He goes, Mike. And he goes, am I in that book? You remember what I did for the people? And I get off the float, and I said, Larry, why did you believe me back then? He quoted exactly what I just told you, everybody. He quoted me. He said, and you promised you'd have cocaine on you. You said it had something to do with God if I didn't give the things to your brother. And I said, well, why would you believe that? And he said, Mike, he said, everything you said you were so transparent, and you just put it out there. And I said, well, what about the cocaine thing? He goes, well, we all had our suspicions, but you never, I was never caught or whatever. But he said, and then he did say, he goes, Mike, he goes, one of the things in your eyes, you believed what you were telling me. And he said, who was I to, do something against God's will?
Okay. So Mike Lindell believed what he was saying about God, whatever. And this guy says, whether it's true is irrelevant. Who am I to go against God's will? Okay. Wow. Clever.
I just thought that was kind of and so I got a picture of Larry and I in the book that day. And, so to answer your question.
What, they did a photo op that day? That's a weird thing for you to do with a cop that's just letting you go, huh?
Question that really, that was a long answer, but I had a bar for 13 years. I think everybody in the county knew I did drugs. Interesting enough, after I met Donald Trump in the summer of 2016, met him for the first time. He invited me there to, just as a businessman, asking me about, doing manufacturing here in the U.S. Well, I came back to Minnesota, and I did a press release saying, hey, this presidential candidate, I met with him. I didn't even tell him what it was for. And the media attacked me. And one of the things they said was they said I was a drug dealer. Now, at that time, I'm going, what? And we made him do a retraction. And the way I did the retraction was I wasn't a drug dealer. In fact, I did so many drugs that I tried to rid the city of Minneapolis by doing them all, But I never.
Oh, my God, dude.
Never dealt a drug in my life. I just did them all, So, and there was that kind of transparency with the media. That's where that started.
Yeah, Mike Lindell's a talker, in case you haven't noticed. He's talking Dr. Drew's ear off right now. Like, he doesn't have an opportunity to get a word in edgewise. It's painful and cringy and terrible.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the cops got to have a sense of when people are lying and when they're not, because they're lied to all the time. They certainly used to hearing lies, especially from addicts. And and I wonder how paranoid the cocaine got you, because crack boy, you start to get real preoccupied about cops. So I'm surprised you could talk to him. He'd been sober a little bit at that point.
Remember, I had slept for a day, but
I don't believe a word out of this guy's mouth. Not one. I'm sorry, man. Everything that he says in my mind is just a complete, flat, blatant lie.
In my book, I talk about, I was a very functioning addict for 2 decades before crack. It was cocaine, alcohol, and everyone, crack and cocaine, they're really they're 2 different drugs, I consider them. And
very different. Very different.
Yeah, very different. Anyone that's on crack knows that. I was a functioning addict. I think people confuse addicts. They go, "Oh, it's someone homeless on the streets and whatever." And I say in my book,
Yeah.
addiction affects everyone, no matter how many forks you eat with. I don't care if it's no forks all the way to you eat with 4 forks. I was a functioning addict, raised
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to anybody except for like Mike Lindell and like 6 other people.
a family for over 2 decades, and I got into crack right around the year 2000. And I invented my pillow in 2004. Well, so you had these parallel tracks of crack addiction with the inventing of my pillow. But one of the things I always did, this was a miracle. This is what anybody that's been on crack say. That's a miracle that I was able to keep the two separate, where I couldn't smoke crack. There's no way you could do a pillow show and smoke crack, because you'd be paranoid, tweaking out windows. It's a very paranoid drug. There's nothing like it in the planet, and it's horrific. It is absolutely horrific.
Yeah, the strange thing about the paranoia, I mean, meth creates paranoias too, but when you smoke meth, you get, but the different paranoia. That the meth creates paranoias that's focused on people close to you, family, friends, neighbors, coworkers. So their relation.
I'm not familiar with this. I'm not familiar with like the different forms of paranoia. I know that it creates delusions, certain types of delusions, but I'm not familiar with paranoia.
Relationships get completely tied into the delusions of meth. With crack, it's preoccupation with uniformed officers. And
of course, that's certainly not the only thing that people are concerned about, but okay.
And you said you're tweaking, looking out the window, and that's what you see out there is cops or infantry or something.
Yeah, there's just a fear is beyond anything anyone could ever experience. And and before I was on crack, I had a friend that was these crack addicts that were friends of mine, and they'd always be so paranoid. And I go, well, I always feel secure around so-and-so because there's always cops around, and I feel safe, there's cops everywhere. We could be in the middle of the dangerous place, and whether it's Mexico or an inner city, I go, don't worry, there's cops around protecting us. It just has to,
you can see them.
Wow, joking about your addiction. Okay.
He sees them in the trees. And then the other thing is the crack addicts, it's always up high. It's often up high a little bit. But the other thing crack addicts do is they do something with their windows. So what did you used to do with your windows other than shut the curtains?
There's
put aluminum foil on the windows. Is that what he's talking about?
You're tweaking out the shades, and it's horrific. And I've said it before.
You didn't put the foil. You didn't put the foil on the. You didn't put foil on the windows.
No, I didn't get that far. No, I didn't.
Okay, that's a usual.
Yeah, that's not like a far thing. That's just something that people do when they're on meth or crack or whatever, because they don't want any kind of light of any sort coming in or going out. They want to be in a box, and they don't want anyone to see in. They don't want to see out. If you see a shadow walking by, it's a problem. Snipers can target you if there's no foil on the windows, for example. That's the motivation, I think, largely.
That's a go-to. So,
and skin cancer. Yeah, skin cancer. They're trying to protect themselves from skin cancer.
If you see foil on the windows, it's your buddies.
Foil on the windows. Yeah. Oh, they all have that. I just said, I'd be in. I know one thing is you knew how many windows were in every house you were in. I'll tell you that, going window to window. And when I said before, talked about carpet farming. I can do a speech nowadays in a room of addicts, and I start talking about crack with the carpet farming and not having any chore boy or whatever, and they all know what I'm talking about. You can see the ones react.
I know what you're talking about too. Yes, sniffing, raking the carpet.
Exactly.
Sniffing the cracks sniffing the cracks and the. But anyway.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing too. Is I want to say, my Lindell Recovery Network. When you first get to the website, you actually put in your age and your addiction, because every single addiction.
I've been to his recovery network, and this is where I'm going to call it right here. But let me show you his addiction website or whatever, his addiction network, quote unquote, if you will. It's insane. Guy's completely full of it with everything. I can't even, like, in good conscience say that he's like an addiction recovery anything. He's just some nutcase, some lone weirdo that's that got a whole bunch of money and doesn't know what to do with it. Oh yeah, here we go. This is it. Lindell Recovery Network.org. Okay, let's see, just what's the first video here?
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Welcome to the Lindell Recovery Network. You all know me as the inventor of My Pillow, but what you might not know is that for over 30 years, I had many addictions, including crack cocaine. I tried many times and many ways to quit my addictions, including going to meetings, counseling, treatment centers, you name it, I've tried it. Everything I've experienced in my life has helped me to develop the most revolutionary platform for addiction ever.
He invented the most revolutionary platform for addiction ever. Okay, and did you get it peer-reviewed? Is it something that scientists, by and large, approve of, think is valuable and useful to treat addiction? Or is it just something you pulled straight out of your ass? Spoiler alert, it's the latter.